Welcome to the WP Minute special live stream today with Mark Zemansky. Today we're discussing WordPress page builders. Why do we use them? Which one is the best? And how do we plan our business continuity around such a core component of our agency or freelance offering? Page builders have come and gone through many shapes over the years. They're not new to WordPress. You can line up the same dots for today's controversies with those dating back to the thesis theme. Enter in Visual Composer, Page Lines, Site Editor, Divi, Beaver Builder, Elementor, etc. This solution is better. Why is WordPress lagging? Oh, look, a new one with 6 new features at half the price. Let's switch. Let's not forget about WordPress Core, a decade-long effort to introduce block-based building with a new site editing experience, RIP Customizer. If it's not for WordPress, there are no page builders, they might say. Pour one out for all of the past page builders and to the future page builders. See quickly. Love them or hate them, page builders remain a crucial component to the WordPress experience. Smash that like button. Share this on social media. It's time to go live with the WP Minute. Welcome, Mark. Welcome to the live stream, my friend.
Matt, thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
For those that don't know Mark, we're going to do an intro with him in a moment here, but he'll be on the WP Minute Plus podcast, the audio version, next week. Once that is loaded up into the queue, you learn a little bit more about who Mark is, where he came from through that audio discussion. As I mentioned at the top of the show in the promo ad, we're talking about page builders today. When are we not talking about page builders, really? I mean, it's just one of those things that never goes away. For those watching, go ahead and drop in your questions, comments, and concerns. We'll grab those as we navigate through today's topics. Mark, for folks who don't know who you are, who are you? What do you do in this WordPress world?
Well, yeah, thank you again, Matt. So yeah, I mean, I had an agency in WordPress since 2018. I was mainly using Elementor at that time. Recently switched to Bricks after kind of discovering Bricks and other page builders and really just diving more deep into the WordPress community, I would say mid to late 2023. So the last 6 to 8-ish months or so have just been trying to create more content because I've been trying to give back. I've learned a lot during that time of running the agencies, and I'm really interested in kind of the parallels and the intersection between business and WordPress, you know, trying to build your agency, all that sort of stuff. As you mentioned already, like there's never a shortage of conversation to be had around page builders and just like how to build that agency, what pieces to put together and all that. I'm a systems guy, I'm a processes guy. So just feel like I can kind of add to that conversation as much as possible. So I've been making YouTube videos. You can check out mjs.bio if you want to see all my social links, subscribe to the newsletter for any updates and all that. But yeah, just being a part of this community. It's fun. It's very exciting. There's no shortage of excitement.
In our document, I have a component where we'll talk about your introduction to the WordPress community. I sort of look at you as this poster boy for a prediction that I had at the beginning of the year, that there will be more folks like you coming into, you know, the old curmudgeon-y community side of things that I like to bucket myself into. You know, we've been around since, you know, early 2000s. 2007 is when I jumped into the community game, was using WordPress a little bit before that at another job that I had, but I started an agency, ran that for a decade. This is how I started this whole like podcasting thing. But I came into WordPress through, you know, I have to crack open a code editor. I have to FTP or SFTP safely to a server back then, hack away at functions and style.css. That's how I learned. You came in through Elementor, and that's why I really enjoy your insights, because there's nothing wrong with it. That's just the way it is. And I think bringing your perspective into this space is important, because there are many folks out there like you who have learned WordPress through a page builder, you know, or other means of WordPress development, and delivered websites to customers who also don't know anything, who also don't know anything about WordPress, but certainly don't know anything about development and cracking open code editors and stuff like that. So really appreciate you having you here to talk about your perspective on WordPress page builders. What's your YouTube channel again? So folks can go subscribe.
It's just my name, Mark Szymanski, and the username is Mark J. Szymanski. So if you just type that in, I should be one of the only ones. Yeah,
You're rebranding?
I put that poll up on Twitter and LinkedIn. Yeah, and people told me to shorten my name from Mark Joseph Szymanski, just Mark Szymanski. So
you're not going to go with my MJ idea?
You know, I appreciated that suggestion, but I've literally never been called MJ in my life, and I never introduced myself as Mark Joseph. So I was just like, let's just make it simple.
Fantastic stuff. For everybody else watching, the WPminute.com, the WPminute.com/subscribe. It's your favorite 5 minutes of WordPress news every week, including videos like this. We're going to jump in through today's news headline, or last week's news headline, still being discussed. I'm sure for the next couple of weeks anyway. Quickly shutting down, which was a page builder on WordPress, or for WordPress, that was sort of making some splashes, I don't know, over the last few months, or over the last year or so. I've seen it on the radar, certainly not as prominent as Bricks, Oxygen, Breakdance, and certainly not against the bigs like Elementor, Beaver Builder, Divi, etc. Did you ever use Quickly?
I didn't personally use Quickly. I know a lot of people that did, and I was familiar with it to an extent, but interesting situation, to say the least. Yeah.
You know, I don't... Listen, let's start with some controversy, shall we? I don't have much trust in a product named Quickly. The word Quickly spelled C-W-I-C-L-Y. You know, I get it. Could have picked something else.
It's definitely, from a branding perspective, I would never guess that's how you spell that. So that's a tough one there, just from like ranking, SEO, all that sort of stuff. You really a lot of jokes made about the spelling of that. But aside from that, you know, like I said, I know a lot of people that use it. Just a couple people that just channels that I've mentioned, Grant Ambrose and Sunny T from New Pulse Labs. Like they're experts in that. Every opinion that I've heard from users of Quickly is it's like, you could have went with Bricks, could have went with Breakdance, but you wanted to stay closer to core. And Quickly, to everything I understand, was kind of like built a top core, almost more of like a generate press, generate blocks. Again, I don't have deep experience there, but it's like, if I would have known about Quickly, actually, if I would have heard a little bit more about it, I might have actually considered it, because we'll get to it later, I'm sure. But if you don't want WordPress core to continue to succeed, then, and you're building and you're in the WordPress space, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's just logically an unsound argument. So particularly Quickly, though, you know, just out of the blue, they just get discontinued. Just an email on a Sunday morning that I saw via, you know, Facebook groups and stuff, and immediately started reaching out to people. You got to feel bad for everybody involved. And, you know, there's a lot of speculation on like what is going on there. And there's some updates, but it's just a weird spot. I don't know if you have heard anything specifically or been following it, Matt, but
I reached out. I sent 6 questions over to the support email, or the communications email that they posted. I haven't heard back. Haven't heard back since going live 9 minutes ago. So I don't, you know, I just asked the sort of standard questions, you know, hey, why?
Yeah.
Why did this happen? What's next for customers? You know, share your thoughts on the situation. The questions I had sent over were pretty standard questions one would ask about a situation like this to, you know, report on. The only thing I hadn't seen when I sent the questions over was the post that they made on Facebook. And I'll admit, just a lot of the stuff, like, I don't spend a lot of time in Facebook in general, and I certainly don't for WordPress products. And what I did miss was that announcement where they like sort of cited that through pressures of you know, content creators, general feedback, all that stuff. That was one of the reasons that played into it. I posted on the weekly newsletter at the WP Minute, the Brittle WordPress Business is the post title. And I said, look, as a former product owner, creator, and Mark, you might not know this about me, but years ago, I was building WordPress themes when I started my agency. Also started to build a page builder myself before page builders were really a
what?
Thing.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yes, my friend. I will one day show you some of the technology I put together. that was quite advanced at the time, where WordPress was. And problem was I invested way too early in this stuff, and I invested in the customizer experience, which back then was supposed to be the future. Like everything we're seeing with like blocks and stuff today in the editor, back then, that was the emphasis. Like if you're building a theme, you got to do everything in the customizer because we're doing it on the front end. People need to visualize this stuff. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what we need. So we invested a lot of our technology in the front end of the customizer, and boy, oh boy, was that a mistake, and quite the lesson in one, being too early to the market, and two, playing in somebody else's playground, because this is what happens when you invest in this stuff. Back to my point about Quickly, man, this ain't easy. Running a business is not easy. Running a WordPress business is not easy. There's a ton of competition. Page builder space is insane, right? You have incumbents that are just massive. You have the block space experience for core WordPress, which is also massive. Like if you search for block-based page builders inside the repo, you have everyone making their accordions, their sliders, their carousels, everything, all of these core block with these stupid animated GIFs that pop up in the repo that are going to drive you nuts. Hyper competitive. And then you mix that on to a customer base that is demanding, right? That same customer base, which is demanding of WordPress, is like doubly demanding of your product because they paid for it, most likely. So I have sympathy for Lewis and the team, so long as this isn't like a money laundering scheme. If you're just trying to grab the bag and run and leave everybody, that's not cool. But I can totally understand the pressures of building something and not having people purchase it, keeping up with your competitors, hearing people talk, bad about you, and then just not seeing the up and to the right that we all expect from our product and business. So I totally get it if he just couldn't handle it anymore.
There's definitely a big human component to things like this. I think we often forget that, obviously, because, we're just always, if we're in the Facebook groups, sometimes we're not even treating people like humans necessarily. It's just like other developers and product owners, and it's very easy to just like yell at support all the time and forget people are humans. So I, definitely want to double down on the fact that hopefully everything's good and all that. But at the same time, though, I like to see things from both sides. And while I hope everything's good and everything is okay from the human side, as a business owner, I do think that you owe it to your customers. And I've gotten this sentiment from actual Quickly users. They just feel kind of like high and dry a little bit because it was so sudden. And I think actually an update on the situation is that yesterday or the day before, there was another message sent out. I think it's called Discourse, but it's their platform for support and forums and everything, like, for bugs and issues. There was another message put in there, and just the way in which the language was written from Louis, it was, again, I don't know the full situation, but because we don't know the full situation, it's just difficult to actually have a real strong opinion on it, because when you're just getting pieces of the situation, you can't really form a logical reaction to it. But it was something like, there was a line in there where it's like, Quickly has been paused, and then he struck that out and is like, okay, no, we're not actually doing any more development. So I think I can't imagine what the users are going through. I hope that the issues continue to get resolved. I hope they find other alternatives, whether that's Generate Press, Generate Blocks, just core in general, bricks. Doesn't really matter. Everybody's gonna be in a different position, but yeah, just it's an interesting situation, and we'll see how it continues to unfold, I guess. Yeah, that's it right there.
So this is the announcement. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. This is Louis, the founder of Quickly. Also, what was weird, because one of the first things I did was obviously go to the website. I saw somebody post. I went to the website, clicked on the About page, and the About page was gone. I don't know if the About page is still taken down at this point. So maybe there was issues internally, whatever.
Yeah.
Hello, hello everyone. I wish to clarify certain matters with you regarding the future of Quickly. We have refunded newly subscribed clients since January 2024 who have made a request at support. So if you requested, you got the refund. You didn't. It wasn't just a mass automated refund.
Right.
Is the way I read that. All Quickly users with an active account on March 3rd, 2024 will receive ongoing access to bug fixes, potential security vulnerability patches, and WordPress compatibility until the conclusion of 2024. So they're going to carry this allegedly, for patches and WordPress compatibility all the way through 2024, regardless of their renewal dates. So it's interesting because if they're not generating any revenue, I mean, are we going to run on a skeleton crew? Or are you still going to be able to sustain that? Because that's largely the issue with this stuff, in my opinion. Subscriptions will not automatically be renewed, but use and updates of the Quickly plugin will be extended to the end of 2024 at no additional cost. Subsequent to this period, commencing from 2025 onwards, we will offer maintenance plans for those users who wish to continue to benefit from Quickly Up, is contingent upon your tier level at a discounted rate. Yada, yada, yada. This measure ensures the sustainability of current prospective websites built with Quickly. Details in regarding. So lifetime holders will continue to enjoy maintenance benefits and access to the Quickly plugin at no additional charge. Did you see what they meant by maintenance?
Honestly, the whole thing is confusing. I don't even think I read that one. I think there was another one, or he must have edited it, because I know for a fact it did not have all that info in there. And to me, that right there is news to me. And that seems much more, I'm struggling to think of a good word for it, but that seems much more, I don't want to say respectful, but almost respectful to your users, that you're explaining all that, rather than what happened kind of initially, like in the past week, where it's just like, all right, we're stopping without any info. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not up to date with that post specifically there, but
yeah,
I guess it's kind of cool that they're continuing the maintenance piece of it, though. I mean, but like you said, we forget about the money part. Like, a lot of times people don't want to talk about money, but money's a real thing. Like, you can't do things, like, stuff isn't free, it's not. And I think it's a kind of slightly tangential topic, but in WordPress, it's so amazing that we get all this stuff. Like, there's so much free things out there, but that I feel like that only goes so far of a way. And then you have people, I don't want to go too far on a tangent, but last thing is that then you have people that want to make money from the websites that they're building for clients, but they only want to use free software. And it's like, that doesn't make, a lot of times that's not how business works. You have to spend money to make money. So, but you're absolutely right. Particular to this situation is that how do they continue to sustain that without new revenue and stuff like that? I'm not sure.
Yeah. It brings me to, again, our next topic and we'll talk about like selecting page builders and how to, sort of drill down to this stuff. And I think it's important to analyze the market space of page builders and look at it from the product, pricing, sustainability, and user base, before, Mark and I sort of drill down to this page builder experience. The page builder space is so toxic. And when I go into a Facebook group, I wonder how page builders can even attempt to cultivate a great community around a product. I have a lot of respect for people who try to tackle the page builder space. What you're doing is you are creating a GUI, a graphical user interface, to help people code off of infinite possibilities of being able to, code a website. And it's a tremendous undertaking. And, what happens is, the next product comes along, it's got 6 more features. It's got 12 more features. And then if you haven't developed those features, the users are like, where are those features? Fill in the blank for any of this stuff, whether it's Elementor missing a boatload of features, and now Bricks has it. This is a chapter I've seen, over the course of over a decade of the page builder wars. It's not something that I think, I don't take it lightly, and I certainly have respect for those who try to solve this issue. But man, sometimes you mix that with low price, buy this lifetime license. I'm glad Bricks moved away from the lifetime license because that stuff is not sustainable. Cheap is not sustainable. And the challenge is WordPress is free, and users come to expect that. And the thing that grinds my gears the most, that's why I can't spend time in Facebook groups, is because I see people who are making money with this stuff and just be outright like demanding, and but you've only spent $100 on whatever solution you're yelling about, and I'm sure you've turned to your client because you took Mark Szymanski's class on website sales and you charged
yet.
them minimally $5,000. So
Yeah.
you're screaming at one person for charging you $100 while you've, made plenty of margin, in your space. Obviously I'm overstating that, but that is something that I see, and it drives me crazy. That's why I can't spend time in these Facebook groups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for the content idea. I'm going to make a website sales course right after we get off this call. No, but I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot there, the toxicity of the Facebook groups and things. There's never any reason to be like rude. But again, I try to see things from both sides, and it's like from my personal experience, and everybody's different, is there's the tough part when you're in a page builder group or just any other group that's kind of associated with WordPress on Facebook. The thing you have to remember is you have to remember that the person that you're talking to, one, is a human, but two, is in a very different spot, not just in their WordPress career. They might be a freelancer. They might just be doing it for a friend. This doesn't cost, most of the time doesn't cost money to be in the groups and stuff. Like, you just have to answer some questions. Like, you have to understand they're in a different spot completely with their WordPress career, or the stuff that they're doing. They're also in a different part of the world, which is another big thing that I've noticed from, the awesome people that watch my videos, and then all the other content that I've watched from other creators. Like, if you're in the US, then that's like kind of one expectation on what things can cost and stuff like that. And other areas of the world, it's totally different. I don't pretend to understand, how economically every other area of the world is in regards to this stuff. But you have to remember that. So, like, don't be rude. But I like to think, like, if somebody ends up being like short with you or something, it's like, you have to understand that they're probably just not seeing it the same. I mean, there's even language barrier stuff. Like, there's so much things going on there. But, bottom line is there's not really any place for that toxicity and that rudeness. But what that ultimately ends up boiling into, more specifically with page builders, is like kind of a tribalism mentality. And it's talked about a lot, especially nowadays. And I'm not really a big proponent of that. I think it's good to know the tools that you use and like them, because they're probably making you money if you're in an agency or you have that mindset. But at the same time, it shouldn't really be like a bricks versus core versus whatever. It should kind of be, as long as we're all moving forward, there's a conversation to be had about comparisons and things, but at the really high level, I think it's going to drive people away, I think, more than it would help, the toxicity and the stuff like that.
So let's talk about selecting the page builder. You're on Bricks. I no longer run an agency. Let me just set the stage. So I no longer run an agency, ran an agency for a decade, 2008 to roughly 2018. My day job is at Gravity Forms. You run an agency and you use Bricks. When I was at my agency, I was using, once we hit a stride. I mean, you got to remember, when I was running it, their page builder experience was just a hot mess, right? Like, you stood clear of things like Visual Composer. The Avada theme was very popular back then. Anybody who was like doing business back then, you saw Avada come through the door and you're like, oh Christ, like I got to service this customer. I already know what this is going to be like. Visual Composer was like the one that was super popular because Theme Forest was or Code Canyon and Theme Forest were super popular back then. So a lot of folks were running that. And we really, once we got a stride towards at least the tail end of my tenure running the agency, we hooked into Beaver Builder. Why? Because I trusted the team. I felt like they were good dudes, had them on the podcast, and the technology was good. And it was a very stable product. And I felt, as an agency owner, their pricing wasn't, I think they were always, they always had like a higher tier pricing compared to like the rest of the industry back then, which is probably why they're still around today. I call them the Jonas Brothers of page builders, right? Like they are still
touring.
Here.
They're still touring,
and still, I mean, Robbie was just at WordCamp Asia. So he's still touring literally the world, and they're still shipping features. And to me, that was very important, because I didn't want my customers having to take over a page builder. Like, if they left the agency, I could say, okay, here's the license. And we would do this all in like pre-sales and all that stuff. We won't get into that in today's video. But I felt like this is a core, or excuse me, a stable product. And it was a core experience that they could take. And I would trust that the Beaver Builder team would support my client, even if my client left, which was, super important, in a solid product. And that's why, largely that's why we picked it. But again, the page builder space wasn't as competitive. You came into this market through Elementor, but now you've settled on Bricks. Why?
So that's a super nuanced question. Obviously, the topic of this. I wanna preface this because I could give you my reasons, and I will, but I definitely want to inject this in here because I feel like every single time this conversation happens, the pre questions that you have to ask before you ask, oh, is Bricks better than Elementor and all that? You have to ask yourself some questions like, what are your goals with your agency, with your business? Are you planning on being solo? Do you plan on being a team? What kind of websites are you going to make? Now, you might not know the answers to all these questions, but I think that you have to have them in your mind. So I'll go through these and I'll tell you my experience for, and my issues or that I was having with Elementor and why I moved to Bricks. But if you don't think about like what kind of companies you want to build websites for, are you just going to build the web? This is a big one. Are you going to build the websites and bounce? Like, are you just going to build the websites and then not maintain them? That's a huge one because depending on, I've talked to a lot of different agency owners, all different sizes, and they all have a different process for that. Like sometimes a lot of times they'll have like a care plan or whatever. But if the team wants to handle the stuff, that's like a big reason why people pick like Elementor over Bricks because they want, hey, we Elementor is easy to use, whatever. It's like kind of like a little more drag and drop. Obviously they're all drag and drop, but you know what I mean? So that's a big thing. The reason that I ended up moving to Bricks personally, again, different for everybody, is that I was building sites with Elementor. I layered on things like Crock-A-Block, which I love the product. I love what it was able to extend Elementor to do. The team is fantastic. I layered on a couple other things because Elementor for a couple years there was just really not innovating whatsoever. It felt like, and they just felt like they were just plateaued. They've since changed a little bit since then, but that was my situation. I had to build a membership platform with a bunch of users on it that they wanted subscriptions, memberships, WooCommerce, the whole thing. That website is heavy, but it works and everything like that. I was able to do that with Elementor, Jet Engine, the whole suite there. And I moved to Bricks because I was like, you know what? If I want to continue to build that stuff, I found other great creators like Kevin Geary, Dave Foy, and all that. And I was like, if I want to continue to build that, I need to either get closer to core or I need to it was just literally getting heavy. Like if you look at the DOM of one of those websites, there's so many like divs and stuff from Elementor. And then, just Jet Engine's not too bad, but like it also added to that. Things weren't loading slowly. Things were loading slowly. My websites were getting a little rough there. And I was like, you know what? We got to make a change. And I feel like now's the time. I was feeling a little stagnant too. I needed to learn something different. So when I found out about Bricks and it was on the LTD at the time, I was like, okay, this is a no-brainer, at least to try. And I jumped into that and I've just really enjoyed like learning that. And honestly, this is maybe slightly controversial in a way to say this, but building in Bricks, because this isn't for everyone, building in Bricks makes me feel more like a developer than Elementor did. The reason is because I have to understand what's going on because it's the closest thing that I've kind of seen so far. And hopefully Core continues to iterate on this as well, where like I drag in a section and then that's literally a section. I drag in a heading and that's literally a heading. If you go and look at the DOM afterwards, it's like, this is exactly what I put in here. What you were talking about earlier, a GUI for coding. It's the closest that I've seen. I'm sure I haven't used everything, but I'm just saying those are the big reasons that I've made this switch for a lot of different other things that you should consider when you're building a page builder. It's just where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Again, relating back to my experience running the agency, it was always, we did a lot of just custom development, right? So we were pretty big on doing all the WordPress standards way of developing to scale the business. We, were working with bigger clients that were really customizing WordPress in ways that just went beyond just, a website. For instance, there was a medical records startup that was one of our biggest clients, and all they used WordPress for was an intermediary to their publishing platform. So they had like all of this medical data. I don't know where they derived it from. It was stored in some crazy database system that they had developed. They had a bunch of researchers like pour data into that. Again, don't know how they sourced that data, but then they were publishing that data to the front end of their apps, their mobile apps that were in hospitals and I guess medical offices and such. But they were using WordPress as the way to take that. We would build up the means to pull that data out, have their editors come in and clean up the content, make it more readable, design it nicer, and then shift it. When you published it, it wasn't publishing a page to a website, it's publishing to their app. In a situation like that, that's a very bespoke, core customizing the core WordPress experience, totally, beyond that. And then we would use Beaver Builder if a customer came to us and they were like, hey, we want to build a brochure site, a business website, e-commerce site, to a degree. But we would always have like these two lanes where it would be custom customer or enterprise grade customer. It's custom coded, right? Where GitHub repository, dedicated staging site, traditional, development workflow. Oh, you're just making a muffin stand down the street. Here's Beaver Build, and that's not, it's just you look at the the margins.
Different project,
different project, and most importantly, insurance factor, right? There's no way I'm going into an enterprise company. I'd love to hear anybody who's in the audience, or maybe even you, Mark, enterprise grade customer, and then say, hey, we built your website with Quickly. Guess what? They just went out of business. We're going to have to go back in and extract all this stuff and throw in bricks, right? Yeah. Never, ever going to happen. And I think at a certain echelon, that's why you have whatever traditional development. I don't know what you want to call it. I don't know what kids call it these days, but whatever you want to call it, custom development. And then you can still use these, these page builders. And I would say with the advent of 2024 as a core WordPress experience, I know there's people are still kind of standoffish on that theme. I kind of like it. I would even say that now you could take core WordPress experience and say, that's my low end customer with air quotes, and my high end customer is built with bricks. Is how I might approach it if I were running an agency today. I don't know if you look at it that way. Like, here's this customer set, I use bricks. Here's this customer set, I just use a super lightweight instance of 2024.
There's definitely an argument to be made with using different platforms, different page builder, different platform, different builder, whatever you want to say. Like, like you just said there, core for one segment of your audience, and then bricks for another segment of your audience as far as your customer base. Personally, I've always liked the idea of doing it with one builder because it was simple. It was one thing to manage. Like, I didn't need to think of like, oh, new, Gutenberg feature block core editor thing. And then like over here, I need to also monitor bricks. It's hard enough to be like deep into one enough to like know when the things are coming out, all the new features and everything like that. But it's definitely possible. The one thing that I would say to kind of like slightly go back and interject into the thoughts is like, I know CEOs of bigger agencies, and again, depending on what your goals are, they don't even know what builder they don't know anything about the builders that they're using. So at a certain point, it becomes to not matter. But if we're talking about people that are just kind of starting and trying to pick, I don't want to say there's like a right or a wrong answer, because a lot of times what's literally going to happen, and again, as my story said, like I ran into an issue based on what I wanted to do. I might have been able to make 5-page websites using Elementor, because there's definitely people out there that are just using whatever page builder, not even watching videos like mine, or not even involved in the community. They're just doing WordPress stuff, and they are making a ton of money, like just spitting out websites, and good for them. As long as they're ethical and all that sort of stuff, like good for them. So, at a certain point, I don't know if there's really a right or a wrong answer, but if you are going to actually dig into this, make some considerations, going back on what you said about enterprise and putting it on quickly, perhaps. I mean, there's no way to tell the future that something like that's going to happen. There may be signs along the way or something, perhaps. I'm not talking specifically about quickly. I'm just talking about anybody, but I don't know if anything's really too big to fail, nowadays. I mean, anything like especially with AI and all these other things that we could talk about ad nauseum, there's so much disruption that is on the horizon. I think the biggest thing that I've decided that I want to prioritize is the ability to be able to adapt. Like, I love bricks right now. I love WordPress and everything, but I want to make sure that I'm still able to, just for my own sanity, be able to like learn, like that's why I try to learn, try and share everything I do, is because I'm trying to make sure that people don't forget that they don't get set in their ways and they're using everything like quickly, as an example again, and then the rug gets pulled from under them. Obviously it's a shitty situation, but you got to be able to hopefully take the core skills and then apply that to a different tool in some way. Obviously you have to learn new UI, UX and all that, but I mean, there's a lot of considerations to kind of take in, like you said, the size of the team, the maturity of the product, the size of the ecosystem, size of the community. We can dig into more of those if you want, but like that's kind of the high level what I've experienced so far and what I've seen just being in the community.
When I started my podcast, Matt Report, dating back many, many years ago, I had a segment called "What Are We Going to Do About the $500 Website Client?" Seems like those problems might still exist over a decade later. Before we get to that, let's just say hi to Marcio, Shanto, Max, Peter. Always good to see you, Peter. Shanto again. Carapace, I hope I said that name right. And that's it. Thanks everybody for joining. If you have questions, drop them in the comments and we'll try to answer them. Have you seen, since you're boots on the ground running a services business, are people coming to you now, customers coming to you now saying, hey, I used Elementor, I tried building this myself, I can't do this? Or are people still like, I don't even know, somebody said WordPress and I should talk to you? Like, what level are people coming into you these days? Do they have WordPress experience, no WordPress experience? They tried it with Elementor. What's it look like?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm the best person to kind of answer it. Just with my agency, I'm trying to target people that definitely have had websites and they're looking for like their rebuilds. They're looking for their level up, because I feel like that's something that I can provide now with the stack that I'm on. What I do get a lot of though is, it's just like friends, acquaintances, word of mouth stuff, is that I get people that think like, hey, can you build outside of the WordPress environment? And that's a whole, maybe we get into it a little bit with the core talk and everything, the marketing surrounding that I feel like is a real, I have some strong opinions on that. I feel like that's if I'm looking at WordPress 50,000 foot view, that's concerning to me, because we have such a large lead on everyone because of all the wonderful work that everybody, Matt Mullenweg and everybody has done over the years, that like, I don't want to see that go away. You know what I mean? I don't want to see that gap get closed with a Webflow or Shopify or Squarespace or Wix or whatever. But the trouble is that I see is that, and I'm not saying I have an actual solution to this, it'd just be a cool conversation, is that the common person, if you ask them how to build a website, I don't know if they're going to say WordPress. So to answer your question, I don't get a lot of people that come to me and say like, hey, I tried with WordPress, can you do it? I actually get a lot of people that say like, hey, can you build in Squarespace or Wix or whatever? I'm like, no, I don't really want, that's not really where I play. And then you have to go through the whole thing of educating. So I feel like that's part of what I want to do with my content too. A lot of people that follow me to this point, like, know about WordPress and they're in that camp. But if you start to expand, if you start to go outside your social circles of just this community, that's, I think, another big opportunity, is trying to rein people back and be like, hey, I know that you had a really bad, weird experience in 2015 with WordPress, but I'm telling you, it's way different now. And it's way different if you know somebody that actually knows how to use it, rather than, just tinkering around with it, on your free time. So I don't, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't have a lot of people saying like, hey, I broke my WordPress website, here it is. Occasionally you'll get that, but yeah, it's honestly, I think it's more exterior, factors that are kind of starting to play in from the agency side a little bit. That's at least my experience.
Yeah, I like to say that the growth of WordPress and its popularity, at least on paper, is because of folks like you and I and folks who are watching the show, agencies, freelancers, power users, cheerleaders of the software, open source, everyone who's contributed to it. It has never been because customers love it. Right? It was never like, oh, this is the greatest thing, and folks stumble upon it like, oh God, I built my website with this thing and it's amazing. It's never because of that. It's because, or hasn't been because of that. It's been because of folks who are, educated on the product and go and, you are responsible for however many sites you've shipped. I'm responsible for thousands of websites that I shipped over, the course of running an agency. It's folks like us that have really, brought WordPress to the level that it's at. And I am on the more like glass half full on WordPress, getting better, to compete against the Wixes and the Squarespaces of the world for end users. Because man, if we got it this far, imagine if it was that much easier for people to build good looking websites with WordPress in a calm, easy fashion that they enjoyed, and then get WordPress and then come in front of you and be like, this thing sucks. I don't know what to do with it. Because when I was a mentor at a local startup, I would teach the web class for, it was 2 cohorts a year, about 20 businesses through each cohort. So somewhere between 40 and 50 businesses I would see each year. And these are like, I'm just starting a business. They need to learn everything. They need to learn accounting. They need to, if they're buying real estate to set up shop, because a lot of them were like restaurants or bakeries, literally. Like they're learning absolutely everything to run a business in a hyper condensed 90-day accelerator. And then I sit in front of them and I go, custom fields.
Yeah.
Right. Like, get the hell out of here. Like, they're trying to get their goal is to get a business plan created, get a website up, get their taxes and their accounting and all that stuff set up, and figure out a marketing message. They looked at WordPress and they were like, no, just give me Wix and Squarespace. And I would sit there and, I would have charts and graphs to talk about like the advantage of open source, because eventually people come back. And I think that if we can make WordPress easier, core WordPress, and want that to happen, listen, when Matt introduced the concept of Gutenberg X amount of years ago, yes, tables were being flipped, right? Because no one likes change. Nobody wanted, developers didn't want JavaScript. I didn't care which way you went. I couldn't do it with PHP. I can't do it with JavaScript. 6 of one, half dozen of the other for me. So whatever. But a lot of people are like, I don't want this, like these blocks and this drag and drop thing. And yeah, it's still tough, but I do want it to get better, because I want it to solve the challenges of publishing a site for the basic user. And then if they ask for more, that's where we'll step in and take it that extra mile. My brother runs a financial website off of WordPress and Paid Memberships Pro. And, obviously he has a great consultant on his side, but he had somebody who is like super heavy into custom coding, Node.js guy, same kind of space, financial. He would tell my brother, I can't believe you're on that archaic system of WordPress. And he was showing my brother like this whole thing that he built. I don't know what technology it was running on. And my brother got a text message from him the other day. He's back on WordPress. because he got to a point where it's like, okay, now I need to create content. I need to market. I need to quickly create landing pages for ads that I'm making. There's so much that goes into the other side of the house when you're running a successful online business that you don't see it now, but then you get to a point where you're like, oh God, I need that flexibility and that community of support, plugins, themes, workshops, live events, content that these other sites just don't have. So that's the advantage largely. Have you ever had to say goodbye to a client and then give them bricks, and what was their reaction?
So, fortunately, most of the clients that I've ever built websites for, I think it's 100% have always gotten like the maintenance plan, and I've never that whole build and bounce thing that I talked about. Like I've never done that. And then any client that's ever left, I think memory wise, it hasn't been many, and they've all just kind of been like, it was a business problem, it wasn't a website problem, so they just kind of decided to kind of close up or pause or whatever, and that was the case. I would not that would not be ideal in my opinion, to give them bricks. At a high level, when I build a website, we don't want to give them access necessarily bricks builder. I'm not saying it's their website. I think that they should have admin access and everything. But one of the things that I'm kind of on the fence about, kind of depends, and we could talk ad nauseum about it, is should you let your clients edit the websites or should you not? And then asterisk, what does that mean? And I would just say as simply as, are they allowed in? Are they allowed to touch the builder? And then are they allowed to edit content via ACF, custom post types, things like that? What I've always done is even in the Elementor days, I didn't let my clients go into Elementor, just because not like I didn't let them, but I definitely didn't encourage it. And I normally didn't give them access unless they wanted. Just ask us. Like, that's what we're here for. That's what the retainer, it's built into that and everything like that. If you want to change a team member, if you want to add a team member, if you want to add a blog post, I'm going to make it extremely simple for you to log into WordPress, only see the certain things on the admin sidebar there that are applicable to what you need to change. You're not going to see settings. You're not going to see tools. You're going to see team members, and you're going to see maybe services or whatever, but like whatever the things are. And then you can go in and you're only going to see, it's like filling out a form. That's always how I sold it to people. It's like, just fill out this form or add or delete or whatever, and it'll populate accordingly on the site based on the templating and everything that we've done for you. So it's very easy. I've never really had too much pushback on that. It's always worked really well when I let the clients handle that. There's an argument to be made if the certain things are like SEO, if it's a public site and they're like editing services and things like that, maybe you don't want them to do that because, maybe that affects with rankings and stuff. It all really depends on how much you want to take responsibility for the betterment of their business, I feel like. But, to answer the question directly, I never really had anybody that I had to offload like a Bricks website to. But I feel like if that were to happen, I would just say, I would be very clear, and I would say like, hey, this is everything about your site. I always do that for them as well. Like, this is all the details and everything. It's built with Bricks. It's built with this stack of plugins, premium stuff. You may have to replace those if you want. If you want to just take this to another developer, they're going to need no Bricks. They're going to need no these types of things. And that's just kind of how it is. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as handing somebody a Webflow website. But I don't know. I don't know if I have a great answer for that one.
Neither is the bill, I guess.
Yeah.
Or at least the hosting bill.
Yeah.
As we get closer to the hour mark, I want to talk about one of the topics that I have written down here, and it's sort of finding your way in the community. Again, folks who are just joining, Mark is going to be on the WP Minute podcast, WP Minute Plus podcast, which airs not today, next Monday, with his interview. And again, sort of really interested in his point of view in WordPress, having come in, back in 2018, which is still a considerable amount of time, but still finding your way around like the core WordPress community, right? Literally going into the WordPress.org Slack recently, right? Since the last time,
Very recently,
since
your recommendation,
since we had the conversation. I've always seen you, I don't know if I've said this to you, but I've always seen you look at WordPress, and this might not be a fair statement, so you can correct me, but I've always seen you look at WordPress as like almost like a product. Like you expect WordPress to operate like a Quickly, like a Bricks. Like we have a product, we're trying to satisfy our customers, and we're trying to ship features to satisfy those customers. Unfortunately, WordPress doesn't work that way. It's much more like local government, for lack of a better phrase. Like you want it to be good, but it just takes forever for anything like good to happen. But it's ours, and it's a shared community kind of thing. Is that a fair statement for me to say? Like you kind of looked at WordPress as like, why don't they ship this? This is a product. Do you have feelings on the iteration process of WordPress? Like, why isn't this getting better, faster than the competition?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree. I mean, yeah, to expand on the community part of it, I'm obviously very new to the actual community of WordPress. Been using it for a while, but I got into it because I was just like, oh, use WordPress at the time in 2018, and ended up being a great decision. But like you said, came in through Elementor and all that, so didn't know there was a Slack group until like you told me, or I saw it on Twitter or something like that. Didn't know that you could actually be a part of Make WordPress and kind of get in there and do all that sort of stuff. So in exploring that, I think I had a recent live stream where I kind of just went through and kind of gave some thoughts on it. Most of the stuff that the opinions that I have are fresh. Like they're not like seasoned. I haven't been diving in there. I've tried to navigate the Slack and everything like that. But I would say that it's a fair assessment to say that I kind of see WordPress as a product, and maybe it's not. Maybe that's a false way of thinking about it. I think that's just the way that I'm wired, because I feel like even if it's a project and not a product, I still feel like there's a lot of people, whether or not they're running agencies or not, that like I feel like if I was at the head of a project like that, I would still feel like I'm powering so much of the internet that I'd want to somehow, and I know the capacity or the scale that we're talking about is large. There's a lot of moving pieces. It's more than just all the stuff we normally talk about. Like you said, it's not just the block editor. It's like all these other pieces of the CMS in general. But I just feel like if we can continue to kind of refine that in a way of processes, structures, or whatever, and I'm sure that they're already in place, I just might be speaking from ignorance and not know them. But if I can't see them and I'm kind of like I'm getting into the community, then I feel like there's no hope for people that like are really on the cusp of it and just getting into WordPress. And like, how do I like this Gutenberg thing? Like, I have a weird idea like for it or something. I think it could be better. And just like a hobbyist, how do I even start to get into that? You know, there's meetups that I just feel like I think you might have said this on our pod or something like that. Like, it's a kind of a web of like all different stuff that's happening. There's not really like any tiers or I don't know. I mean, it's there's a lot going on. It's a big project. There's a lot going on. And I feel like if we got more to a product mentality, it would be a little different, but I'm not sure if that would be better or worse. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Just talking.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly one of those things where, again, I've said this before, it's harsh criticism about the way WordPress works. Like, obviously, hey, everyone's entitled to their opinion. They can say whatever they want to say about how they feel about WordPress. The challenge for me is when there's like direct criticism, like harsh criticism, like out of line criticism to the way WordPress works, but that like you also sell or have an agency on WordPress, either sell a product that runs on top of WordPress, or you're a freelancer consultant agency owner and you're running on WordPress. Like, why would you be so against supporting literally the foundation of, what you stand on? Is the stuff that drives me nuts. But it is a massive project, and even stuff that I don't even pretend to understand. But it's again, you look at City Hall, and floor 3, they're making the block editor. Floor 6, they're working on the site editor. Right? It's just, wait a minute, shouldn't you two like all be on the same floor together? It's like, no. And largely the comms issue, the communication issue, and it's a hell of a lot better these days than it was, in the past. But it's that lack of commercial approach. There's a lot of camps out there that say, hey, this is just like an automatic endeavor, because largely they're the largest, commercial contributor to WordPress. It lacks that commercial approach, for better or worse, right? There's no marketing team, research team. What are we doing for the customer? How are we getting that into the funnel? How are we shipping this? It's not that. It is a bunch of people spread across the world coming together on a project to help people publish content, whatever it is, not just a business, but about their book, about their life, in a private journal that nobody logs into. Like, it is literally this thing that helps people publish content. And the goal isn't just how do we make this thing for agencies so that their customers can do things online. It goes well beyond that. And it is a sprawling team. There's no one place to just get started. I wish there was. They're getting towards it a little bit. And I'm open. Anyone listening, watching later on, to comment and say, this is the best place to start. You go to a WordCamp. You can go to a WordCamp contributor day, where you can just show up and be like, I want to contribute to WordPress. And they'll be like, here, spell check this WordPress document or help doc. That's where you can start. This is it. This is how I can contribute back. Yes. Like, we need people to read documents, write documents, organize documents, tag documents. There's a million ways to contribute to WordPress. That's not just, I'm a React developer. How do I get started building blocks, for the team? And it comes with its challenges, but it is something that I think folks should appreciate, because, again, I've said this before, you're not showing up to Apple or Google and having those discussions, right? I don't like where these icons are on my phone. I don't like how you store this data. It's not going to happen at these closed source commercial entities. And WordPress, in my opinion, is so important to the web that we should appreciate the fact that we have, a bit of a claim for this, which gets people into trouble, because we all feel like there's this ownership to WordPress. Like, we all feel a part of it, but that can also get you into trouble because not one person owns it. I'm really starting to believe it's more of a spiritual thing. This WordPress, this thing is like, it exists. It's there. No one really owns it. Not even, Automatic to a degree, although I'm sure people would, say otherwise. But it's an interesting space. And I think I would love yeah, like as much as I want WordPress to be for the average user, I love it if it could get to a level where it just like stopped, and then Bricks came in, and then Elementor came in and expanded upon it, because I don't know how you solve building a website for everyone. And I think it should like get us the structure and then bring in the third-party tools to enhance it. It's how I would like to see it. And I think it will still continue to exist that way for many years. You know, but I don't know. I don't know at what point they stop with that kind of production.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're in the WordPress space and you're not rooting for the improvement of core, then I think you're literally just trying to, you know, destroy the foundation that you're literally standing on. So it's just logically unsound. I don't think there's many people in that camp, but I just don't think that makes any sense. If we get past that, though, you know, the biggest criticisms that I've heard. Well, first of all, again, if you're criticizing and you're not trying to also contribute or just at least talk, to have conversations with people that are closer. Like for instance, I got to shout out I think they're called hallway hangouts that I just found out about last month or whatever, with Ann McCarthy, I think. And like, it was awesome. I didn't catch it. I want to get in the next one, but it's like, I saw it on replay and it was just like people talking, literally people like doing stuff in WordPress, talking about like kind of the situations, the ideas, the, you know, feedback they had. If you're not in those conversations and you're criticizing, that's tough there too. Cause like, you don't want to just be the person that's complaining. You want to try to either have a solution and all that. There's different levels of all of that, but specifically with like when it comes to WordPress and what you just said about the building a website for everyone, I think that's probably, if you had to boil it down to one thing, that's kind of like the main weirdness, is like, that would be awesome, but is that possible? And hopefully everyone that makes that critique is proven wrong, and somehow, you know, the team decides and figures out a way to make a website for everyone. I could see one path would be that, like you said, the core editor is really, really easy for any random person off the street to use. But if they get in there and then they get stuck, then they could reach out to like a secondary person, like an agency owner or somebody that has more experience, and then they can layer on top of that. The only thing I would say is by that time, that install of WordPress might be so like weird, because that's just how WordPress installs get when you don't have a good stack, that, you know, I was just in one the other day. It's like, I can barely even diagnose problems, because like this is a Bricks website and I don't know what's going on with this website. You know what I mean? So, but again, to the core thing, I'm rooting for it. I hope it continues. If there's anything that I can do to kind of contribute and provide feedback without just like kind of screaming into the void and complaining, I'm 100% down to do that. But it'll be interesting to see how it continues to evolve. And I just hope it continues to trend upward. Cause like I said, going back to it, we're all in the WordPress boat together, and hopefully we're rowing in the same direction, but there's other boats behind us, you know, trying to catch up and get past. And I think that, just from a usability standpoint, a continual life standpoint, that I'd like to see WordPress continue to be whatever that big stat is, 40%, 50%. Like I'd like to see it go up. So we'll see.
We will see. We will see indeed. Mark Zemansky, thanks for hanging out today and talking about your experience with WordPress, with Bricks. Hey, if you want to hear us, hear us, because it's going to be a podcast too. See us. You want to see us again? Leave a comment, thumbs up in the comment section. Wrap up the discussion. If you enjoyed it today, I just lost my camera because I think my battery ran out because of the hour. It's amazing.
I hate it when that happens.
I do this professionally, ladies and gentlemen. I do this professionally. We'll turn on the old MacBook cam. Thanks for listening to today's episode, thewpminute.com/subscribe. Mark, where do you want folks to go for your stuff?
On YouTube, if you just type in mjs.bio, that's my website's currently under construction. So just go there. You'll see all my social links. You can sign up for updates on my newsletter and everything like that. More stuff to come. But thank you, Matt. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Max, Adam, Peter. Who else do we have? I'm getting old. I got to squint. Marcio, everyone. Thanks, Shanto. Thanks for hanging out today and dropping in your questions. Mark I'm going to convince Mark to come back. I'm going to twist his arm. I think the whole like young guy versus old guy is a good shtick.
We got more to chat about. I'll be back.
We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, everybody.